In the quiet town of Silver Pines, Montana, where the mountains wrapped the valley like a mother's arms and every neighbor knew your name, lived a man named Walter Harris. At 72, his days passed like the slow, meandering river that flowed just beyond the town's edge. People remembered Walter as the stoic veteran who once stood tall in uniform, but time and tragedy had bent his shoulders and hollowed his gaze. Years ago, a drunk driver stole from him what he cherished most, his wife, Margaret, and their daughter, Grace. The accident left an ache too deep for words. Since then, Walter had lived in near solitude in a modest cabin on the edge of town, warmed only by the steady companionship of Rusty, a German shepherd that he was advised by an acquaintance to adopt from the rescue center after days filled with loss and sorrow. Rusty was more than a pet. He was Walter's shadow, his confidant, his reason to rise each morning. The dog had a calm soul and eyes too wise for his years, and from the moment they met, they had become inseparable. Every morning, Walter brewed a pot of strong coffee, poured 2 cups, one for himself and one he placed near Rusty's bowl, a quiet gesture of companionship. Then they'd walk together through the streets of Silver Pines, stopping by Rose's Cafe for a warm cinnamon roll and small-town chatter. "Morning, Walt." Folks would call out from porches and pickup trucks. Walter would nod, maybe smile. "Beautiful day, ain't it?" He didn't say much, but when he did, it came with weight. Sometimes, he'd sit on the cafe porch and recount old war stories to young men fresh out of high school. Rusty always lay at his feet, eyes half closed, tail thumping quietly whenever Walter reached down to scratch behind his ears to teo the townsfolk. Walter was a symbol of strength, but inside, he carried a quiet sorrow that only Rusty seemed to understand. One autumn morning, as the golden leaves whispered in the wind, Walter felt an unusual tightness in his chest. He waved it off, stubborn as ever, but as he walked Rusty toward town, his breath grew shallow and his legs unsteady. Just before reaching the cafe, he stumbled, gripping a lamp post as the world spun. "Walter," a voice called out. It was Nurse Emily, a kind-hearted young woman from the local hospital. She often volunteered at the cafe on weekends and had shared polite conversation with Walter before. Walter tried to wave her off, but Emily was already dialing for an ambulance. "Don't fuss," he grumbled weakly. "It's just a bit of wind knocked out of me." But Emily saw the pallor on his face and the worry in Rusty's eyes. The hospital tests confirmed the worst. Walter had late-stage lung cancer. Aggressive, untreatable. The doctors spoke in hushed tones, but Walter already knew. He had spent enough time with death to recognize its shadow. Back in the waiting lot, Rusty lay outside the hospital doors, unmoving. For hours he waited, eyes trained on the entrance, ears twitching at every passing nurse. No leash, no commands, just loyalty forged in the silence of a shared life. Days passed. Walter stayed in a small room at the end of the hall, sunlight filtering through sheer curtains, his breath growing shallower with each sunrise. Though proud, he wasn't afraid. But there was one ache that refused to ease. He missed Rusty. "He's probably out there, sitting in the cold," Walter muttered, half-conscious. Emily, who had grown fond of the quiet veteran, stepped into his room one evening, her eyes tender. "I saw him again today," she said. "Still waiting." Walter smiled faintly. Stubborn dog, always was. That night, when the shift changed and most of the staff had gone home, Emily made a decision. She tiptoed out the back, crouched beside Rusty, and whispered, "Come on, boy. He's asking for you." Without hesitation, Rusty rose and followed her through the back corridor. Inside Walter's room, the old man stirred at the sound of paws on linoleum. He opened his eyes, and there he was. Rusty, the dog, padded softly to the bed and rested his chin on Walter's arm. Walter's fingers curled into the golden fur, and for the first time in days, tears welled in his eyes. "You made it," he whispered. For a while, there was no sound but the soft rhythm of Walter's breathing and the occasional sigh from Rusty, curled up beside the bed. Emily watched from the doorway, heart aching at the purity of their bond. Walter turned his head slightly, his voice hoarse. "If I don't wake up, girl, promise me you'll take care of him." Emily nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I promise." Walter managed a smile. "Good, good. He's the last friend I've got." And with Rusty's warm breath on his skin, Walter Harris slipped into sleep. He passed away quietly before dawn. The next morning, the town awoke to the news. "Walter's gone," they said, voices somber over coffee cups and folded newspapers. Flags flew at half-mast. Veterans in worn caps gathered on the cafe porch in silent remembrance. But outside the hospital, Rusty remained. He refused food and water. Nurses tried coaxing him. Locals brought blankets and treats. But Rusty didn't move. He lay in the same spot where he had waited each day, eyes on the door, tail stilled. By the third day, it was Emily who returned, bundled in a coat, cheeks pink from the wind. "Hey, buddy," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "He's not coming back." Rusty looked at her, eyes tired and mournful. Emily pulled a letter from her coat pocket. It was found in Walter's belongings, an old, wrinkled envelope addressed simply to whom it may concern. She opened it, voice trembling as she read aloud. "If you're reading this, I reckon I'm gone. Rusty is the last friend I have in this world. He's been my anchor, my reason to keep going. If he's still alive, please give him a home. Not a cage, not a cold kennel. A real home, where someone talks to him, walks him, loves him. He deserves that. Thank you. Walter Harris." Emily felt tears slide down her cheek. She looked at Rusty. "How about coming home with me?" Rusty stood slowly and took a cautious step forward, then another. And just like that, he followed her, head lowered, tail swaying gently. Emily lived in a small cottage on the edge of town, not far from where Walter had once walked. Her home was quiet, filled with soft music and warm blankets. She wasn't lonely, but she had always felt something missing, until Rusty padded across her hardwood floor and curled up at the foot of her bed. Days turned into weeks, and the two grew close. Rusty would sit by the window, watching the street with quiet curiosity. Emily would talk to him while folding laundry, while making tea, while writing in her journal. He listened, as always. Word of Walter and Rusty's story spread through Silver Pines. The local paper ran a feature titled, "The Dog Who Waited, A Bond Beyond Goodbye." People left flowers outside the hospital gate, and schoolchildren drew pictures of a soldier and his dog at the annual town memorial. Walter's name was read aloud, and a wreath was laid in his honor. Rusty sat beside Emily in the front row, wearing a small red bandana around his neck. When the crowd rose for a moment of silence, Rusty let out a quiet whine, soft, sorrowful, as if saying goodbye one last time. In time, Rusty became something of a town treasure. Children would pet him on their way to school. Veterans would pause to give him a gentle pat, tipping their hats in silent respect. And Emily, she never forgot Walter's words. She kept his letter framed on her mantel, beneath a photo of Rusty lying beside his hospital bed. Sometimes she would sit on the porch, Rusty by her side, and wonder how such a simple creature could carry so much love. But maybe it wasn't simple at all. Maybe loyalty like that, love like that, was the rarest kind of gift. In a world that often felt disconnected and lonely, Walter and Rusty had reminded them all of something important. That true friendship knows no boundaries. Not time, not death, not silence, only love. If you were moved by this incredible story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell So you never miss an amazing tale like this. Stay with us for more heartwarming and unbelievable stories.